Okay, lovely. I think that's everyone we're expecting. We've got 20 people on the call, which is great to see. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to our 5th virtual coffee morning. So today we're looking at school partnerships and partnerships with universities. We're really excited to have 3 guest speakers with us this morning from a range of different HEIs, so really looking forward to those. I'll present my screen now, but just say hello to everyone that's on the call. Okay. There we go. Okay, so yes, this is number 5 of these virtual coffee mornings that we've been hosting. We have a range of different people on the call today. So as mentioned, we're looking at school partnerships specifically. And we wanted to host this today because we feel that those partnerships with schools and with universities are going to be more pertinent than ever, with disadvantaged groups potentially being the most negatively impacted by COVID. So we wanted to give teachers and careers advisors on the call some top tips for maintaining those relationships with universities, and just hearing about some of the specific projects that universities have delivered, whether it's around white working class or looked after children, whatever it might be, how those projects have worked in practice. So that's kind of it. So just a couple of notes on housekeeping as ever. We will be recording the session, so just to make you aware of that. So yeah, and there'll be also opportunities to speak today. If you're not speaking, if we could just request that you pop your microphone on mute, and yeah, and then if you do have something to say, please use the chat function as well. Okay, so just to do some quick introductions. So we have Sophia Misleadys from University of East London today presenting about their podium project, which is about white working class boys. Then we're going to hear from Jo Sampson from Queen Mary's about their specific projects with different schools. And then finally we're going to hear from Hafiz Alawaji about their LSE Sprint programme. So we're really excited and really grateful to have those speakers with us today. We normally do a bit of a roundup of the week that was in terms of what's been happening in the education space, because it changes very quickly at the moment, but we're going to skip that today as we've got 3 speakers. So I'm going to hand over first of all to Sophia, and yeah, to take it away. Thanks, Sophia.
Okay, so good morning everyone. Thank you for all joining today. I'm really pleased to be presenting. So what I'm going to talk about is effective working today, and how it's worked for us. So if I can have the next slide, please, Michelle. So just a little bit about the University of East London. First of all, we were established in 1898. We are 3 campus universities. For those of you who are not aware, 2 of them are in Stratford and the other one is based in Docklands. We have students from over 135 different countries, but we also have quite a high level of students from the East London area as well. Next slide, please, Michelle. So what we do, in a nutshell, Outreach and Access are there to support years 6 to, it's actually 13, up to year 13, to make informed decisions about their futures. And we try to work in a really consistent way with our schools to make sure that young people are really, really informed throughout their educational journey. So next slide. So what I'm going to cover today in terms of what works in terms of effective partnerships is firstly setting up expectations at the start of the journey with all of our partner schools. We do have partner schools, and that is really fundamental to the work that we do. We try to work, as I say, in a consistent but flexible manner that works for the schools that we work with. We also report back on the impact of any events that we run for those schools, and I'd just like to touch upon our response to COVID-19 as well. So just next slide, and I can talk a little bit more about that. So in terms of setting expectations, as I say, we have about 19 partner schools now, and the idea is that we work consistently with them. we have a partnership agreement with each of our schools, and this stipulates what our expectations are of them and what their expectations are of us. So, for example, we asked each of our partner schools that they involve themselves in at least 3 activities every year, and that can be across a range of age groups. So it can be, say, a Year 7 assembly, it can be taster days for Year 8 and 9, it can be participating in our summer schools, but there needs to be that constant drip effect, so that young people are building on their knowledge. And as I say, we do have a flexible offer, so it's a range of different activities, which I will talk about in a moment, but this has led to a sustained and impactful impactful interventions and a partnership with our schools. So next slide, and I can talk a little bit more about the offer. So as you can see from the graphic, it is really about the tortoise and not the hare in terms of our approach. One-off interventions we know don't work, and you do need to drip feed that information across, which is why we have a progression framework that we share with our schools. So it is a flexible offer. We have 3 different sections in our progression framework. So we have awareness, which are things like assemblies and career fairs, that sort of thing. We have skill and knowledge events. So those are things like taster days, our career insights days, our motivation days, which tend to be on campus. And then we have our attainment programs, which are a bit more in depth. So I will talk about phenomenal physiology in a little bit, but that's one of them. And also things like summer schools, and schools can pick and choose from this menu, and it is a progressive menu, as I say. So next slide. This is from one of our partner schools, and hi to Joanne, who I know is online at the moment. Good morning to you. So she's provided this quote for us, which I'll read through. CGA and UEL have been partners for over 5 years. In line with the Gatsby benchmarks, we have got a stable career programme that UEL is an intrinsic part of. UEL come to our biannual partnership meetings, exhibit at our career events and open evenings, provide us with inspiring speakers for assemblies, as well as giving our students the option of open days and taster days. By having contact with our students from Year 7 to 13, our students see UEL as a natural progression to their education and not like a place that is not for them. So thank you, Joanne, for that quote. But you can see there that we are very integral to the offer in terms of Gatsby benchmarks and the career offer at the school. This is really evident here, and it is progressive and it is impactful what we do. But we're not trying to take over. We are trying to work with our schools in the best way that works for them. So next slide. Thank you, Michelle. So in terms of reporting, we do 2 levels of reporting. So it's all about impact. So we deliver reports at the end of the academic year to our partner schools, and this is based on delivery numbers, how many participants they've had, what have they engaged in, what has been the impact of those events, and also recommendations for next year. So in July, we start those conversations with our partner school to build on what will be happening in September. And for projects, we also hold impact reports. Thank you, Michelle. We've got phenomenal physiology, which I mentioned earlier. So this is taken from the impact report that we've just written up, because that project's now done, luckily, thankfully, before COVID-19 hit. So just an overview of that. It's basically a series of after-school clubs which focuses on different aspects of medical physiology. So the young people will do experiments in things like muscle strength and heart function as part of the after-school club, and then that project culminates in a conference on UEL site, and they have to present their results in a scientific poster, which is really exciting for them and gives them an insight into how a student who's studying science will present an experiment at university level. So you can see here, there's some really strong results. So clearly linked to the programme. So I've improved my understanding of medical physiology. Over 90% agree or strongly agree with that statement. There's linkages to GCSE subject knowledge and how it links to careers in medical physiology. They've also improved some of their skills that are really vital, such as analytical skill and capacity for creative and innovative thinking, as well as things such as leadership. So really, really strong results, and it's a program we're really proud of. So next slide, please, Michelle. Thank you. So this is a replicable model, and we have launched this year the Podium Project, which is aimed at white socioeconomically challenged students, particularly boys, as Michelle mentioned earlier. We have started it this year. So this is the first academic year that we've run this and specifically focused on this particular demographic. There are 4 schools involved, and those schools were chosen on the basis of the demographic information that we have. So they are schools that are not achieving particularly well. They are in areas of Polar 4 Quintile 1 postcodes, and they're based in Havering, of which it is the most homogenous borough in the UK. So it's a very high concentration of white students here. So 4 schools were involved, and we had over 1,000 students engaged, and that was obviously before COVID-19 hit. So it is something that works really, really well. So next slide, please, Michelle. Thank you. So in terms of our response to COVID-19, obviously we want to keep up the partnership working as much as we can under the current circumstances. So there has been an offer that's gone out to our partner schools, but we can spread it wider, which is why I'm mentioning it here. So these home packs are basically for young people with no or limited online access. So when I was speaking to Joanne last week, she gave an example of one student who is one of 8, and they only have a tablet between them, which is not really conducive to doing any online work. And we're very concerned about the students who are not being included because of the limitations of technology. So these packs are something that we are creating at the moment, and it's going to include materials on academic and transferable skills, some resources around investigating which careers would suit them and linking it to their motivations. We're also going to include like a career options book or a support book as well, depending on the pack, and also some information and activities that they can work through in terms of like myth busting university terms, what's the difference between school, college and sixth form. So these are all printed resources ready to go that they can just work through. There's no reference to anything online. And we're also going to include 1 or 2 UEL goodies in that pack just to show that we care. These are subject to availability. As I say, the priority is to partner schools. However, if other schools would like to give these packs out to their most needy students, i.e. those who have limited or no access, those on free school meals or those in care or are care experienced, please do get in touch. We can offer a maximum of up to 10 packs per year groups because we do have a limited supply and they do cost a fair bit of money to produce. If you are interested, there is an email address there, so outreach and access at uel.ac.uk for further information. We are requesting the information for how many packs you want to come through by Tuesday the 12th, which isn't very long, but we can push that a couple of days, but absolutely limited to the 14th of May as well. So if I could go to the next slide, please, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Michelle. So the other thing that we're doing is we're creating webinars aimed at year 9 to 11. The reason for that is because of the age of consent, and we're being really belt and braces in terms of safeguarding with our approach to webinars as well, which I'll talk you through. So as of mid-May, and the plan is to go through to the end of July, but we shall see how everything plays out. But I've released the first 3 events already, and they're open to book onto, and they are happening every Thursday. The plan is every Thursday at 10 AM, and there'll be 30 to 45 minutes depending on how many questions there are. So the first one, as I say, is next week with me on Thursday the 14th of May at 10 AM, which is presenting with impact. The following Thursday, we will have an online academic taster in psychology, which one of our psychology students will be delivering. And then we have the 3 R's of resilience the week after, which is focusing on resilience to navigate and negotiate the next steps for higher learning. Now you'll see there are different links there. So the Eventbrite link is for teachers. So this is for you to register and get reminders of the event. The second link is the link directly to the live events web link, so the actual webinar itself. So we are reliant on teachers to remind their students to make sure they get on board and to share the link at the appropriate time, because with live events there is no registration needed, so we're not taking any of the kids' details. It's literally a link that they need to click on at 10 a.m. on the Thursday morning, and they can join the webinar. We don't have access to their cameras or to any audio. It is interactive, but it's all done through a Q&A box. So we've built the webinars in that way for maximum safeguarding. So if you're interested, the links are there. But also, I would just like to say, you know, if you're interested, please email us on Outreach and Access. I can pass on any links as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just to summarize, because I know time's running out, consistency is really key for impact, and partnership is give and take. You know, we don't want to enforce anything on our partner schools. We want to supplement what they're doing and make sure that young people are informed all the way through their educational journey, as I say. So if you are interested to hear more information or you have any questions after this webinar, I've left our Outreach and Access email address there, and also the web link to our schools and colleges page at UEL. So if you wanted to know a little bit more about each of those programs that I mentioned, then you can look those up there. So yeah, any questions? I'd be happy to answer. Thank you for listening.
Great, thank you so much, Sophia. That was really interesting. Really sort of like that best practice piece around, you know, setting those expectations and embedding those sort of minimum 3 sessions per school, I think is a really reassuring way that you know that that programme will have an impact on those students. So that was really great to hear about. Does anyone on the call have any questions for Sophia? We've got a couple of minutes because we've got a couple more speakers, but if there are any questions, please do pop them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi Sophia, I've got a quick question. I was going to say I really appreciate in terms of the work that you guys have done for the home packs, and it seems that people in the chat have also said that that's such a good idea, knowing that students don't have access to IT easily at home, but then also appreciate the work that you've done in regards to safeguarding the students. And I was interested to find out what platform it is that you guys are using to live stream to the young people.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been going through our IT department to find what is the most appropriate platform, and they have recommended Live Events, which is basically part of the Microsoft Teams suite. So you can essentially set up what is a live event, and it's different to Teams and Zoom because you don't have access to cameras, and as I say, everything is done through a chat box. And equally, you can have joint presenters. So that third webinar that I mentioned about resilience, we are buying in a consultant's time to deliver that on resilience, and they can talk to the presentation much like I'm doing now, and also share their presentation. So that's the platform that we've been recommended, and this is the one that we're going for, just because also because we don't really want the kids to sign up to anything, just in case of like GDPR, and it's just a very belt and braces way of doing it.
Thank you.
Great. Are there any other questions for Sophia? Okay, and there will hopefully be space at the end as well to, if anyone has any questions that they think of for the rest of the session. But for now then, just to say thank you very much to Sophia, and we'll share the details, like the email address and the details of those webinars in our newsletter, if that's okay to do so next week, Sophia, so people will have access to those links. And we'll now hand over to Jo from Queen Mary's, who's going to talk about a specific case study in a specific school. So good morning, Jo.
Good morning, thank you. That's me, cool. So hello everybody, my name's Jo. I work in the recruitment and widening participation team at Queen Mary. Bit of a disclaimer on that one, a heads up that I've only been there for 11 or 12 weeks, but I have worked at a number of universities with school and college outreach. So I do have experience of school partnerships across kind of multiple regions of the UK and also other universities in London. Cool. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So I thought just to start, I would kind of talk a bit more broadly about kind of why have a school and university partnership. And actually these do look very different even within one university across different schools. So universities are likely to have kind of groups of schools that they work with based on demographic information and kind of different levels of intervention that they have with those schools based on that, really. So in terms of a partnership itself, obviously it's really important that this is a mutually beneficial partnership and that there's team capacity at both ends to support that, which I think is sometimes overlooked, and I think it's really, really important, particularly to get senior buy-in from both sides if that partnership is to be sustainable and is to have an impact. But really the benefits are it's a university and a school working together to kind of generally improve standards of education. Also to inspire young people to fulfil their potential, which is something that obviously as university access and outreach teams we aim to do. It's ingrained in everything that we do. And importantly, to familiarise young people with the idea of higher education and the benefits of academic research by kind of those sustained interventions and kind of meetings with people from universities, whether that's student ambassadors, whether that's staff from outreach teams or academic staff. Okay. So in terms of what that might look like, I think in my experience of working at a number of different universities, that looks very different and it looks very different for different schools, and it's very important obviously that there is some flexibility in that. And in order for it to be sustained, I think it does have to be mutually beneficial with a service level agreement or a memorandum of understanding, which kind of outlines what's expected of both parties. As Sophia's already touched on, it's a kind of a two-way thing, and it's very important that schools are engaging with kind of the things that they've agreed to engage with, but also that the university is supporting where it has said it will support. And I think that senior buy-in from both sides is really important for that. In terms of the impact, similarly to UEL, we regularly report back. We have annual reporting to our partner schools. We use the HEAT platform, so the Higher Education Access Tracker, which obviously involves collecting certain demographic data from the students that we work with, but that's you know, quite importantly in the service level agreements that we will kind of ask for that information from those students, and that enables us to track lots of things, but kind of fundamentally whether or not they do end up progressing on to higher education of any kind. And we also map our activities against something called the Narupi framework, which some of you are probably familiar with, and that kind of falls under 5 different groups of kind of outreach areas. So that's know, choose, become, practice and understand, and that kind of underpins all of the outreach work that we do, and we evaluate against kind of the effectiveness and the impact of those as well. In terms of kind of things that universities will kind of offer as part of that, sometimes they will be working with those schools where the schools will offer PGC or kind of teaching placements for current undergrads or postgrads that are studying at the partner university, and that could be in particular subject areas, but that's been particularly kind of prominent I've seen in universities that have big kind of education and teaching education departments. In terms of opportunity, sorry, could you go back? Thanks. In terms of opportunities for teachers and for kind of school support staff themselves, quite often within that agreement there might be the opportunity for maybe reduced rate kind of postgraduate study, and opportunities for teachers to get involved with some kind of quite high level research that the university might be doing in a particular subject area. Quite often with a school and university partnership, you'll see university representation on that school's governing board to kind of bring in that higher education and wider participation angle, which is really important. Again, some more subject specific stuff, so CPD for teachers, subject knowledge enhancement as well. So quite often you'll see maybe conversion to STEM, or kind of teachers wanting refreshers of their subject knowledge or kind of topping up a subject knowledge, and quite often that is written into the service level agreements that the universities will offer that to those teachers if they have the same subject area specialisms. And I think, again, something that Sophia's touched on is that these, in terms of working with the young people themselves, it's really important that these are they're longitudinal for impact. They're not one-off interventions, because we know that they are very low impact, and that all of the outreach that we do is evidence-based. And having that partnership and working closely with the school means that we can do kind of that level of evidence sharing and yeah, ensure that these interventions are not one-off. So in terms of a case study from ourselves and the school that we work with, Drapers Academy, I thought I'd just kind of give a bit of a heads up on kind of what is special about the relationship with Drapers and some of the things that we offer. So one of the things that we have been working on are kind of student-led focus groups with the Drapers Academy pupils to kind of co-create an updated outreach curriculum. So against the NERIPI framework that I mentioned earlier, we took kind of each of those 5 strands: the know, choose, become, practice and understand. And we are basically hoping to have multiple interventions, multiple activities for each key stage as a result of that for each of those 5 strands. And in order to basically to ensure that the pupils themselves were going to get the kind of maximum impact and they were going to get what they would want out of these sessions, we kind of tasked some of our student ambassadors who work with us quite regularly on kind of outreach events to do some focus groups with each of the year groups, year 7 to 13 in Drapers Academy. And that brought back some really interesting research, which we've been able to use to kind of tailor our activities to, you know, what we would hope those students, those pupils are going to want from those things. And also having student ambassadors leading on that rather than staff. Obviously, as outreach team, we did oversee that activity, but the student ambassadors themselves were also quite recently students, some of them from that school or schools in that area. So for them to work together was kind of, yeah, great to see. As I've just touched on in terms of representation on governing boards and stuff, so my manager, who's the head of recruitment and widening participation at Queen Mary, sits on the Drapers Academy Governors Board. We support with the Academy's science and maths specialism, so these are kind of quite key departments for us at the university, and they are school specialisms for the school. So that is kind of all sorts of things like enrichment and extension activities, learning materials that are kind of collaboratively developed with our academics and with the teachers at the school, and kind of events for the students, particularly from those subject areas, to kind of come onto campus and do some tasters. Further to that, we have undergraduate students of ours kind of doing subject mentoring and tutoring of particular Drapers pupils. As I've said, the co-created outreach curriculum that I've just touched on will involve interactions for pupils in every year group through Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4. And that isn't something that's specific to Drapers, but obviously as a partner institution, it means that we can kind of ensure that that does take place. And the research that we've done with that school has underpinned all of that activity. Further to that, a little bit of a project that I'm going to be working on very soon is development of some outreach activity for the primary feeders. So what's really important with some of these school partnerships is that they are very often part of multi-academy trusts. And what that means is we then have kind of links and ways to do some primary outreach as well, which is great. So Drapers Academy has a number of primary feeders as part of their multi-academy trust. So I'm going to be working on some year 5 and some year 6 activity with those guys, which I'm really excited about. And then also, as you would expect to see, universities offering, you know, particular compact schemes or financial support such as bursaries and scholarships, where the partnership is strong and it's been written in service level agreements. Attendance at this school, so for example with Drapers, does count as part of the eligibility criteria for certain scholarships and bursaries and for certain progression activity. So lots and lots of benefits there to both parties, but really importantly to those people. Yeah, so in terms of what that's kind of looking like during COVID-19, we've recently launched our digital content hub where we have put up a number of online courses which students can access and they can take in their own time. And priority access to that did go to a number of our partner schools, and that meant that they had then had the opportunity to feedback on that and to suggest any resources that they would like to see. That's not to say that other schools and colleges can't feedback or suggest new resources, and please do get in touch with us if that is something that you would like to do. But it's all about this kind of co-creation and collaborative working. So these are now live. There are also 2 sections on there, one for parents and carers, which includes some webinars, and one for teachers and advisors, which again includes some online events and includes our teachers conference. So all of that is live on the link shown there. And again, something else that's kind of key to the partnership is that there is a key point of contact at Queen Mary. So kind of during this kind of turbulent time, our partner schools have got kind of a nominated member of staff, which most of the time is me, to talk to about guidance around admissions related queries. So that's kind of, it's stuff that we offer to schools and colleges more generally, of course, but it's something that kind of looks a bit more special, I guess, if you're a partner. And I've just kind of added some links there, which kind of teachers and advisors in the room might find useful in terms of kind of going about setting up those school partnerships, kind of expectations from both sides. And there's some policy documents there from Universities UK about kind of using university and school partnerships to raise attainment in particular subject areas. And that's all from me. But again, happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Joe. That's brilliant. Yeah, we've got some time for questions, so I'll hand over to those on the call if you have any questions for Joe. And if not, I'll ask some questions. Great, people are being a bit shy, but that's okay. Brilliant. Well, that was really useful, Joe. Thank you so much. And I think we'll share those links about setting up school partnerships. I think that will be really handy to look at. I think what I perhaps didn't have an awareness of from that, and I suppose it's more of a comment than anything, is the stuff around scholarships and how schools partnering with different universities perhaps have access to scholarships. So I think that's something that maybe could be more circulated more widely. So I suppose if there's any further details on that you have, Joe, that we could share around, that'd be great, because I think that's something that I perhaps wasn't aware of.
Yeah, sorry, just I think just importantly is I should highlight really that these are scholarships and bursaries that have a number of eligibility criteria, linked to the usual kind of W criteria that you would see around kind of household income, to other demographic information and postcode. But also, kind of as a standalone. So yeah, I guess it is. It's not that it's kind of specific to them. It's just that obviously they're benefiting from being from that school.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any other questions from those on the call?
Hi, my name's LB. I'm a sixth form careers advisor in North London. I guess it's just worth understanding how I developed that partnership. How do we develop a partnership with Queen Mary's if you wanted to?
Yeah, so I think obviously those links would be a really great starting point in terms of kind of having a look at what kind of would be required from both parties. I think what's really important is for those really kind of strategic partnerships, it's quite often based on maybe historical relationships or kind of links in the local area. So as for example with Drapers, with the kind of the Drapers Trust, there's kind of a wider, more historic relationship there. But in terms of setting up service level agreements to be able to work with the university, just getting in touch with my team really. So in terms of taking that forwards, depending on what that would look like, it might involve some kind of strategic management decisions. But if it's kind of just particular outreach sessions and kind of making that longitudinal and something that happens year in, year out, then yeah, that would just be kind of direct contact with my team. And I'll share the email address if anybody does want to kind of make contact with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right.
Sorry,
I just go back.
Hi. Hi. Sorry, there's some building work going on outside my house, so it's a bit noisy. But Joe, I just wondered for schools that might not know about this. Does a school have to pay for this partnership? Yeah.
So as far as I'm aware, there isn't any particular payment that takes place as part of this other than kind of staff time. So I think one thing that's really important to know is that this is quite making these relationships work and making them sustainable and impactful does take staff resource and does take time. So having kind of a key contact and a senior kind of leadership, part of the senior leadership team kind of invested in it is really, really important. And I think that's the main thing to focus on. It's more that kind of senior level buy-in and having somebody kind of operational that is willing to make those relationships work from both sides really. So the school and the university are committed to kind of getting those things in the calendar and making sure that they happen kind of year in, year out. So yeah, if there is something that happens much more senior and above my head, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that. But I think the really important thing for me that I would want to highlight is the staff resource and the staff time that it does take to make those things work.
Great, thanks.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Joe. I think, yeah, I think for perhaps a lot of schools, it's knowing how to set up that partnership, like knowing who to go to. So yeah, I think if we can sort of circulate that sort of information as a UniConnect partnership, then that will be perhaps of real value to schools across the network. So thank you very much, Joe. That was really insightful. And now then we're going to hand over to Hafiz, who has got the best Zoom background on the call, I think. So I'm going to hand over to Hafiz for his presentation.
Excellent. Can everyone hear me? Wonderful. Thank you for having me, Michelle, and hello to everyone out there. My name is Hafiz, and I do work as part of the widening participation team at LSE, London School of Economics. Next slide, please, Michelle. So what our WP team do in short is we work with London state schools, sixth forms and colleges. And our main aims are to raise awareness and provide access to opportunities that we have created and other initiatives that we have to support attainment with secondary schools and sixth forms in terms of raising grades for students and actually having an impact on their qualification outcomes. And also to instill confidence in students, teaching them about higher education in general, and also providing valuable insight into progress into highly selective universities like LSE. And we do have about 16 different programs that we provide for students in year 5 all the way to year 13. I would say that our primary school work for year 5 and year 6 is delivered by Into University, so we have a strong partnership with them. So they do a lot of our primary school work, and they often bring their students to campus for graduations, which is great to see. Next slide, please. So I'm sure as the University of East London and Queen Mary's know, is that we will have an access and participation plan. So all universities have this, and the OFS, the Office for Students, have made this a requirement for all higher education institutes mainly to set out how they're going to improve access to university and participation from groups that are underrepresented at university in particular. So ever since the university's board at government level, the Liberal Democrats' time, when they decided to increase university fees, and they had to justify it and ensure that underrepresented students didn't miss out with the increase in fees. So the OFS, they have placed an emphasis on sustained evidence-based work and a robust evaluation of everything that we do. So long gone are the days where universities will invite students from state schools for just a campus tour or just to say hello to some student ambassadors. It's important to ensure that if we engage with students and schools, that we're having an impact and that we're doing sustained initiatives and making sure that they're sustainable in the long term in particular. So from LSE's perspective, we've got ongoing partnerships with 2 schools very strong partnerships, and we're working with different cohorts in those schools for extended period of time, because there's evidence that working with the same group of students over a period of time has greater impact. Instead of one-off workshops or one-off visits to the universities, we want to see the same students and ensure that their progress can be measured by evaluating everything that we do with them. With the 2 schools that we're working with and the other schools that participate in our other programs, which I'll mention in the next slide, it's important that we do share data, and we do have data sharing agreements with the schools. And the data that we're in particular looking out for is the attainment data, and see if there's been a difference in the grades, and also in comparison with other students, how are the students that we are working with specifically improving. So that's our APP, a bit of our APP, quite a crucial part. Thank you, Michelle. So in terms of our context and focus, specifically, we do have a criteria of students that we work with and that we're looking out for. And from the target group at the top, you can see that these are students that are underrepresented at higher education institutes such as LSE, so specifically Russell Group universities and selective universities, highly selective universities. So we're looking for students from particular backgrounds and particular neighborhoods. So the way that we measure students from particular neighborhoods is by using statistics that are from different kind of ways of measuring. So we have the IMD and we have the polar. So we use quintiles 1 and 2. So it's just a bit of technical language, but the overriding thing is that the neighborhoods that we try to pick from are neighborhoods that are underrepresented in higher education institutes, so low progression to university in general from the postcodes that we work with. Also, we do look out for care experienced students who are underrepresented at universities in general. And when it comes to ethnicity, we're looking at Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Black African, Black Caribbean, and white working class students who are underrepresented at LSE and also top universities in the country. And we do have an emphasis on focusing on disabled students and students from forced migrants. And might I add, actually, students who come from the background of Roma or Gypsy travelers. We're really looking to work with as many as possible, because this is a particular hard to reach group. In terms of core eligibility criteria from a school's perspective, so we do have individual programs where students will have to apply by themselves, and they need to meet one of the target groups from the ones that I've mentioned before. But when it comes to schools applying for our programs, normally the schools have to meet our free school meal criteria, which is under more than 25% of the school population are on free school meals, based on GCSE attainment as well. So if the national average is 44.4%. So if the school falls below that, they'll be eligible to apply for our programs. And also A-level national average, if they're below that as well, they'll be eligible to apply for our programs as well. So as well as the school being, the school meeting our criteria, it's important when we do work with schools that the students that they're also selecting also meet our criteria as well. So it's like a double whammy. We want the schools to meet our criteria, and the students that the school select to also meet our criteria is very important to us. And we do consider other things such as family background. So if there's no history of higher education in the family, or it's the first generation to go to university, and we do consider that. And if there's unemployment status amongst the parents or low paid jobs, we do consider these factors. And when students or schools do apply for our programs. Next slide, please, Michelle. So I'm just going to mention a few of our programs. So our mentoring and tutoring schemes are two of our biggest programs, and they work in a way that allows it to be measured over the long term, and it's an engagement for both LSE students who work on the mentoring and tutoring program and for the student mentees who benefit as well. So schools do have to apply for this program, and they normally send in their applications around September, October time. And then we consider these applications, and we do get quite a lot of applications from schools. And then we use the criteria to whittle down the schools that will be chosen. So it is a 10-week program, and we do ask for students between the years of year 9 and year 12. And we believe this is a key group to make an impact on. So we do ask for these year groups. And the main aim of the mentoring program is to raise aspiration, improve confidence in young people, and to raise awareness of higher education opportunities. And the tutoring scheme in particular is where we're looking to raise attainment. So to help to raise students' achievement levels and to increase student aspiration, because they do have it already, and to encourage them to consider university as a future option. So the way that we work with our tutoring and mentoring program is that we recruit our tutors and mentors from our LSE student population. So they could be master students or they could be undergrad students. And we do actually have quite a lot of master students who are interested in this program because they're looking to build experience, and they're also looking to get involved with making a change in a young student's life. So we do really encourage that from our LSE student population for them to get involved. And we also set an applications kind of system for them to apply, and we do interview them. It's quite comprehensive to get onto the student or mentor scheme. This year, we did work with 6 schools for tutoring, 2 of our partner schools, which we will find out a bit more later. And I'm sure some of our partner school reps are on this phone call or on this Zoom meeting. And for mentoring, we did work with 7 schools. And we like to provide opportunities for our LSE students in order to gain valuable insight and experience. And that's one thing we do love about our schemes at LSE, is that we always try to get student involvement. Next slide, please. So our tutoring and mentoring program, schools have to apply for it. And it's a 10-week program, but unfortunately, due to the coronavirus outbreak, we had to end it prematurely. We only had about a week left, but it was a very well-enjoyed program, and we received, although we haven't evaluated it in our normal manner, and we've received informal feedback, and it seems to be very positive. But another program I will tell you about is one of our fairly newer programs, and it's called LSE Sprint. I won't get too much into the details because of the amount of time I've been given to speak, but it's a key program for us now, and it's very, very interesting. Essentially, we've chosen 2 partner schools, and the schools are Barking Abbey and Harris Academy St John's Wood, and they're going to be our 2 partner schools, the ones that I spoke about earlier, that we're looking to have long-term work with. And what we did is we launched this program in December with a launch session in school. And the idea of the program is to develop skills in critical thinking, to ensure that the students that we work with engage with our academics at LSE, and to provide training skills that they will find useful when they go into university or go into the working world. So that's the main aim of LSE Sprint, to develop challenges that incorporate thinking and higher thinking and critical thinking skills for the students. So we've chosen to work with year 12 from each school. So we have 25 students from Harris Academy St John Woods, and then we also have 25 students from Barking Abbey. So we partnered up with the schools, but we allowed the schools to choose the students. So we've asked them to choose students who, of course, meet our WP criteria, and also who are interested in social sciences, and due to the fact that LSE is a social science university. So that's what we've asked for, and that's what we received. I'll just talk you through a bit of what we did in terms of sessions. So for session 1, yeah, it's fine. You can show the slide to show the logos of our partner schools. Fantastic. So a bit of high praise for these 2, because they've done fantastically well in engaging students and making sure that they are aware of the opportunity and attend the sessions that we have. So session 1, as I said, we launched it in school. And if you go to the next slide, when we got into the school, we introduced the program, and we also brought 5 student ambassadors, because each cohort from each school, we working in teams of 5. So we brought 5 student ambassadors who they were going to work with for the long term. So remember how I said, we're not trying to do one-off workshops, we're trying to do long-term work, so we can see the impact of the work that we did. that we are doing in terms of WP work. So when we went into the school, we brought the 5 ambassadors. They got to know their teams and got to engage. And actually, when we went to the schools, the school students gave our ambassadors a tour of their school. Normally, when they come to the university, they receive a campus tour. And we launched the program, spoke about the benefits, and they actually created vision boards about issues that they're concerned with in the world. So we had social mobility, we had gender equality, and we had education, which was great. And this is the kind of work that they produced. And we told them what we're expecting from them, and we wanted their commitment overall. So we launched it in school, and that was great. Move on to January, and we started with our first session. So the next 3 sessions, they had to come to the London School of Economics, and their teachers weren't bringing them to the school. So they needed to be independent and show their commitment. So they came in for a session where they had critical thinking workshops led by one of our academic departments. And then for session 2, they came in and received a session on how to construct persuasive arguments in terms of writing and producing high quality in an academic sense. And for the 3rd session they came to, we recruited some external trainers to provide tips and insight. It was a whole day's workshop on teamwork and presentation skills. Might I add, it was actually a Saturday, so the turnout we were very, very impressed with. Unfortunately, we were meant to have a big, well, fortunately, we were meant to have a big launch, a big session where they developed and displayed their presentation, but due to the outbreak, we had to cancel that. But we are postponing it, and hopefully they'll develop and deliver it as soon as they're able to do so. So that would have been the end of the program, where they deliver a big presentation on the topic that they've chosen, utilizing all the skills that we've provided them with. Next slide, please. So the Sprint program and our tutoring and mentoring program are just 3 of our programs that we do. As I said, we do have other programs. We have programs that students have to apply for individually, where it's off their own back. And we do have opportunities for schools to apply for some of our programs and to bring the students themselves to our campus. And might I add, actually, just before I finish off with our effective school partnerships, is that our mentoring and tutoring programs are led by the school coordinators, and they engage with our school, our tutors and mentors to make sure everything is coordinated, that mentors and tutors are coming to their sessions on time. So they normally have 1 session a week where they'll work with a small group of 3 or 4 students, and that will be their group for the 10 weeks. And we do extend an invitation to the schools to come and visit our campus and meet their tutors or mentors on site. So they actually get to visit LSE and gain some valuable insight into how our campus and university works on a daily basis. So I'll move on to effective school partnerships, and I will end on this. What has worked well, we've seen so far, is that the impact on pupils. We've seen aspirations and confidence grow because the students do have this already. I've been working with students who meet WP criteria for the last 6 years, and there's no short of aspiration or confidence with the schools that we've chosen. So we're just seeing an impact and, you know, providing an insight and broadening their horizons, and we like to see that. Hosting mutual visits to school and LSE campus has worked well, as I said before. And we've seen commitment on both sides, and that's what we want to see from schools, ideally, that they're committed and they understand the program and the importance of the program. So having meetings at the beginning of any partnership is very important to us, so the schools and the university understand where we are. Communication has to be frequent, and we communicate effectively via email and also via phone as well if need be. And the feedback. So because of the outbreak, we were unable to evaluate our feedback in our robust manner that we would normally do, but we will still do that. We will still do that. But we do have some of our teachers on this call who might want to say 1 or 2 things when I'm finished about our program. And the normal challenges that we do have with working with schools, but which are not major negatives, but it's always important to mention, is that we want all the applicants for our program to meet WP criteria. The funding is there to work with students who are underrepresented at LSE, and it's important that we work with these students. We also want to maintain student engagement over a long period of time, because we do have other programs that they will be eligible for. So if a student's in year 9, we do have year 11 programs, we do have year 12 programs. So once we've met a student, we want them to be long-term engaged with everything that LSE has to offer. Everything we have to offer is free, and we want them to engage and develop as much as they can with us. And this goes a long way in good standing in terms of applying for the university. So maintaining student engagement is important. And parent or carer involvement would be great as well. So parents are aware of what we're doing on campus. We invite them to certain activities, like for the grand finale of Sprint, we would have invited parents to see what their students have produced, and that would be lovely over time. I think I probably used up a little bit more time than I should have, but any questions at all, or maybe Michelle wanted to invite, I think we've got Anthony, Mark and Misbah on the call, and maybe they wanted to say a few things about our relationship.
Great, yeah, thanks Hafiz. Yeah, if there are any questions on the call, and like you say, any comments from those schools that work quite closely with LSE, I can see Mark has posted that the posters from that project are up in his office. That's really positive. So yeah, if there are any comments or questions, please do unmute, and yeah, feel free to ask your questions.
Hi Hafiz, I've got one quick question. Basically, which schools are allowed, well, which programs are open for schools to apply for? I know you've got your target schools and the schools you already partner with, but which ones are kind of open for schools across London to just sign up to?
Okay, that's no problem at all. Thank you, Taylor. So our tutoring and mentoring programs, we do review the schools every year, and we allow schools to register their interest, and we will consider them as applicants in terms of choosing new schools for mentoring and tutoring. But all of our opportunities are actually on our website. We do have programs such as ACE, where students come in for the day and gain some insight about what university life would be like. And we have another program called Introduction to Social Sciences, where schools can apply and receive a taster lecture from one of our academics on campus. They stay for lunch, and they stay for Q&A with our ambassadors as well. So it's a whole day. So those are some of the programs that we do have available at LSE for schools, and all schools, state schools in London can apply if they meet our criteria. And you just consider the application in terms of how much of our criteria they meet, and we consider it as that. I don't know if I've missed any. I've got my colleague Catherine on this call as well. She might want to add something. If not, then I've hit the nail on the head.
Good morning.
Oh,
Sorry.
I just unmuted myself as well, Mark, but we can both talk.
Oh, okay. Misbah, you go first.
Well, I was just going to say that I know that obviously for LSE that you know, and I guess it is about the time commitment. They can't necessarily do Sprint with all schools, but for people who are thinking about partnership, I think having that model, so with a university, is really beneficial. What I've noticed, like having done, and we're still doing other things with other universities, but the real benefit of having something like LSE Sprint is not just the intensive nature of it, but the fact that the students are really forced to engage. I think one of the drawbacks sometimes of having sort of one-off things is students are not really having to do so much. They kind of can be quite passive participants, and definitely has a really positive effect on some of them. But with LSE Sprint, what I've noticed with the students, it's really developed their skills, their engagement, their interest, and kind of thinking about what things are like at universities, especially after they had the chance to go to LSE. I'm really looking forward to when we finally get to do the final event, because Mark and I are going to go and watch them present, and that will be really lovely to see, because there were some students who were really nervous at the beginning of even sort of doing group work with students that they weren't sure about or knew, because there are sessions where the two schools have met when they were at LSE after the launch, and I think that's been really positive. And for us, it's also been really positive because I'm the tutor, the form tutor for a number of the kids, so they come to talk to me as well about university applications. It's really made them think about what options they are at university, because our students often just think about the regular things, subjects that they've heard of, and they won't often have heard of a lot of the subjects that are offered at LSE. So it's been really good to kind of widen their thinking about that as they go into kind of year 13 and start doing UCAS.
If I can just comment, I've had more to do with the maths tutoring program at the school this year. So we've had a group of students from LSE who come into the school on a Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, and they work with a group of our year 10 students. So we targeted, obviously, the criteria that Hafiz mentioned before, but we targeted our high attainers, so those who are predicted a 7 to 9 in maths. The tutors work very closely with our lead practitioner for numeracy at school. So he met with all the tutors beforehand and they talked through the sorts of things that they were doing in maths. He also teaches the students at school as well. So that was really useful for the tutors to get an insight into what the kids already know, what they needed to be stretched on. Working in the really small groups gives the kids access that they wouldn't normally have in the larger class setting. And I think it works both ways. I think for the tutors, they've had the opportunity to work with kids, to work out how to improve their own sort of teaching and delivering style as well. Unfortunately, again, because of COVID, it was cut short, but anecdotally, the kids are all sort of mentioned how every week having that spot to go and work with the tutor was enhancing their enjoyment of maths and also their abilities at maths and their progress. So really, really useful. And one other thing, we also had our year 7 cohort who went to LSE for the day and did a taste day on the social sciences. So they came back, really enjoyed that, reported back that they had been exposed to things that they hadn't really thought about. And some of our year 7s then pursued that further and went to some other sessions on the weekends with their parents as well. So thank you to Hafiz, Catherine. It's been a really, really successful partnership, and I recommend any schools in the room who are thinking about it to do it, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know if teachers have questions that they want Mark and I to like respond to in terms of what it's like from the teacher perspective, but happy to answer if there are any.
Thank you very much for sharing those insights, Ms. Burr and Mark. That's so useful to hear a school's perspective, and it sounds like those programmes have been really impactful, both the sprint programme and the maths programme. So that's really great to hear. We are rapidly we're well over time, so we will wrap up now if that's okay. I'm just going to pop us all back on the screen. So thank you very much to all of our speakers today and sharing your sort of best practice and top tips for partnership working with schools. I think there were a few things that came through. I think that buy-in from SLT is really important, ensuring programmes are sustainable and long-term. And I think what was interesting about each of the presenters today is the amount of sort of attainment raising activity that is included within those outreach programmes. And I think more than ever, they're going to be really crucial in light of the impact that COVID's going to have. So thank you so much to everyone that's dialed in and everyone that spoke. We have our next coffee morning on the 22nd of May, so back on Friday rather than a Thursday. So thanks again to everyone today, and have a lovely long weekend. And we will share all the details from today, including the links, the email addresses, in our email that goes out on Monday. So thanks very much, everyone. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.